Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our illuminating content. Here is episode 160.
We look at failure incorrectly. There's a lot of questions where there is no right or wrong.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Stacey Taggart. Stacey is first and foremost a wife and mother of 3. Although being a mother has been more challenging than she ever imagined, she also finds it more rewarding, beautiful, and joy through it than she ever thought possible. She's grateful for the experience and opportunity to rise to the challenge and become a mother her children needed her to be, to teach them, guide them, and instill in them the confidence that they need to be successful, fulfilling their missions and purpose. She is passionate about freedom, and as she discovers that passion, she's been led to many seemingly unrelated areas of focus: homeschooling, specifically leadership education, a traditional real food diet, energy healing work, entrepreneurship, agriculture, abundance, and empowerment mindset. All of these have an underlying theme of personal accountability and freedom. She's happiest when outside spending time with her family or when learning, discovering, and acquiring new knowledge. Welcome, Stacey.
Hi, thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And we're going to hopefully get into all those things that you mentioned, all those areas of focus. But before we get into any of that, can you go ahead and tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I'm married to a wonderful man, my best friend, and we've been married for 10 years now. And even though we were, quote unquote, older when we got married, we've still been able to grow up a lot together in the last 10 years, and that's really neat to kind of reflect on. We have 3 beautiful children, ages 4, 6, and 8, and we're having a lot of fun with them, of course. I really, really love my family. I love traveling and exploring and having adventures with them. And our most recent adventure is buying a farm and starting an agricultural business that we intend to be a family business, so the children can find their niche in it, and it can be a part of their education and growth, and that can just all work together. We love living in the country. We feel like it's the best place to raise our family. There's so much for us to do and learn about here, so we feel like we have 25 acres of classroom here. Really enjoy that.
Well, and how did you find your passion and your mission? I mean, we mentioned so many different areas of focus. Do you just want to kind of give us the background story of how that all fell into place?
Sure. It's come together slowly the past 8 to 10 years or so, I would say. And I can't say I even have it all figured out yet, but I'm uncovering pieces of it each and every day, it seems. There's a saying about where your pain is, therein lies your passion, or is your message. That's certainly been the case for me. I haven't felt very well physically and emotionally too, but didn't really know that until my first child was born. Before that, I would complain to my mom, I don't feel well. She'd take me to the doctor, but the tests never really showed much, and so they would tell me, oh, you have this or that syndrome or whatever, and send me on my way. I never really found much relief and just thought, well, I guess that's just the way I am, and I just kind of worked through it. But I had my first child around the same time as 2 of my friends did, and they were bouncing back from their pregnancies and deliveries so much more quickly than I was. And I was looking at them going, how in the world are you doing this? I felt like I was just putting one foot in front of the other. And that was really frustrating for me. So after several months of it just not getting any better, I finally went to the doctor and started that whole process again. When that doctor couldn't find anything wrong with me, he would tell me, oh, you're just depressed, or oh, you're just this. Try to put me on an antidepressant medication. And I felt so frustrated because I'm like, I can't take care of my baby. Of course I'm depressed. Like, why can't you figure out what's wrong with me? And so I went from doctor to doctor and specialist to specialist trying to figure out what was going on. And finally, I was getting tired of this whole situation anyway, but one of the specialists gave me a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, and I still remember that day so clearly, even though much of that time was such a blur because I just wasn't feeling well. But he said he really didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't exactly fit the bill for fibromyalgia, but this was close enough. This was something I could put on my disability paperwork, and I would need to take an antidepressant the rest of my life to manage the pain and other symptoms, and that's just kind of the way it was going to be. And I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned. I don't think I said anything in response, because I had gone to him, I had gone to all of these doctors, I'd gone to the experts wanting answers, wanting solutions, and they couldn't give me one. And I wanted someone to help me get to the bottom of it so that I could fix it and feel better. That's what I thought they would do, and that's not at all. And of course I didn't want to put it on disability paperwork. I just thought that was very odd. And so I wasn't angry or mad yet. I was just shocked, and I felt so disillusioned. I'd put my trust in them, and they couldn't help me. But as I went home and was kind of pondering this and thinking about this, a new concept entered my mind that had never crossed my mind before, and that was that I could figure out what was wrong with me. I could fix it, and I could feel better. And I don't think I ever really thought that it would be like all me necessarily, but I knew that heaven would help me, that God would help me.
Like a bout of inspiration, almost like
yeah,
I'll show you the answer.
Exactly. Like,
awesome.
A light bulb turned on. Oh, I can pray. I can figure out what to do about this. And I think honestly, that bout of inspiration came because of an experience I had also around that same time. Not to sound too churchy here, and that was when I learned to study the scriptures, like really truly learn to study the scriptures. I was blessed to be raised in a spiritual and religious home, and I was taught to pray, read the scriptures, and do all those things, the Sunday school answers, but I never really developed a testimony of them, of the scripture specifically into my own heart. I did it because I knew I was supposed to, all of those things, but I didn't just do it. And other than a few rebellious years in there, I wanted to be obedient, so I did it, but my heart wasn't in it. But I was teaching a class at church, and the stars must have been aligned that day because I looked at my lesson a week in advance, and I'm so glad that happened because it has had an extreme effect on me. The lesson was on studying the scriptures, not reading the scriptures, but studying them. And there was one really neat quote in particular by a Latter-day Prophet, and he promised these amazing blessings by dedicating a set of time each day to the study of scriptures. So here I was, this brand new mom. I'm feeling completely overwhelmed with life as it is, just caring for a newborn. I mean, you never really are prepared for that,
Yeah.
And I thought, I need these blessings. I need this. And in addition to not feeling well, of course. So I thought, I'll try just about anything to get some answers, to get some relief, to get some help. And so I decided that I was going to try what he said for a week and then just kind of have a little experiment. I'd go back and tell my class what happened. And honestly, my life has changed from that. I decided that I would study the scriptures for about 20 minutes every day that week, which, he had said something about, read for 15 to 30 minutes. And I didn't want to do the bare minimum. I wanted to do slightly better. But at the same time, 20 minutes felt like an eternity to me because I was used to just, opening it up. Okay, I'm going to read this scripture. And if it was a short, or read this chapter, if it was a short chapter, great, life's good. If it was a long chapter, oh man, and so, but I was excited about this. I kind of felt good about this. So like the very first day I had my cell phone timer and I'm all ready to do this. And I hit start on my timer, and then I opened up my scriptures, and then I found out where I was and trying to eat as much time as possible, but by the end of the week, I was opening everything up and being as ready as possible because I really wanted to make like every second of that 20 minutes count. And it not only changed my scripture study, but it's changed my life because I've learned, this desire to learn, this ability that I have to go to whatever I want to learn, and I can jump in there and I can learn it and I can grow from it. And it taught me that I have the ability to change things, and I can do so really quickly. I mean, my scripture study changed literally in a week. I started like Monday and taught the lesson on Sunday, and so 6 days. And so that really had a profound effect on me. So kind of back to my health, I guess, and how that all worked out. When the experts couldn't help me, I knew I had to find answers somewhere, and I did. Thankfully, there's the internet. You can Google anything and find out pretty much anything you want. And I came across a concept called real food or whole food. Same thing, just different words. And so I was doing some research on that, and I eventually was led to traditional cooking methods. And so I changed my diet, changed my family's diet, complete overhaul, and really a lot of relief from that. And so that plus a few other things, I was led to energy work. I've really gotten a lot of relief from that. And so I feel so much better now. And so I'm so grateful for those health struggles that I had, because they led me to search, this drive, this desire to find out what was wrong, and that therefore I could find the answers. And so that's been really neat. But I have to say, too, along with that another part of my mission, and it's the biggest and most important part actually, is raising my children. Honestly, I treated that at first the way I treated my scripture study. I just did what I needed to do to get it done. But now I don't see it that way at all. And as I've been blessed with these 3 tremendous spirits, I realize now that my main mission is to give them what they need to do what they came here to do. So I really need to be a very active participant in teaching and training my children, to give them the home and family life environment where they can learn and grow and thrive. I need to prepare them for the real world out there, which, isn't so great these days in many respects. There's a lot of wonderful things going on, but at the same time, there's a lot of really concerning things happening. And so I really feel like, other than education and empowerment and all of that freedom, my main mission is just to love them as much as I can and give them all that I can so that they're strong and capable and able to move forward through the darkness and perform their missions and light the world and change the world, really. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche or whatnot, but I really do feel like one individual does have the power to change the world. And when many individuals are on the same page, each fulfilling their own missions and own purposes, I mean, that can have just a tremendous effect.
It really does. And let's talk about how you feel like that inspiration, I guess, what I'm getting from what you're saying, and then you tell me what your overall paradigm shift was, is that maybe when you put those core books of your scripture study and your inspiration from your religious beliefs first, it actually helped you, gain some inspiration to know where to move in the rest of your life. Is that kind of where your inspiration or your paradigm change came from?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, before I was just going through the motions, just really not being an active participant at all. And then that experience with the scriptures, I just really saw how I had always kind of sat back in my own education and in my own life, really, And so my paradigm shift, I was able to really take accountability for where I was at and what I was doing, and make that conscious decision and have that conscious desire to change and to take control of it myself, to seek the inspiration that I needed to find, because I don't have all the answers, but I feel like as I've prayed for answers, I'm led to those answers. There's my shift.
Yeah. In your bio, we talked about how you're passionate about freedom. That's a freedom to be able to actually take care of yourself, in all of those unrelated areas that we talked about before. But, that freedom comes from being able to have that inspiration to know what to do and to move in that direction, correct?
Correct, yeah. To have the freedom of a clear mind and be able to take care of and do everything that I need and want to do, and have the freedom to learn what I want to learn and to make the choices that I want to make for my family and for others. Just to be free of outside influences, tethers, those sorts of things that we end up being in bondage and we don't even realize it. But once we can kind of awaken to that fact and choose to empower ourselves and get out of that, then that's where true freedom is found, I believe.
Yeah. sometimes we're just walking around like we're asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So we mentioned a whole bunch of different areas in your bio of homeschooling, leadership education, your diet and eating real food, all those things, entrepreneurship and agriculture. And how does that all relate to kind of a self-directed education that we talked about before?
I think the common thread in all of that is just that it's us. I mean, there's a lot of people we look to as mentors and guides and such, but, we want this for ourselves, and so we're choosing to do it ourselves. We made the very conscious decision for my husband to leave the workforce and start our own business, and the economy, wasn't great and hasn't been so great in our area since then, so we left the security of those every other week paychecks because we felt the drive and the desire to take care of ourselves and to create something and to serve others with that. And it's been a bumpy road at times, honestly, and it will continue to be somewhat, but it feels really good to have that self-reliance where you step out of the norm and do something different that I believe personally is more fulfilling and more rewarding, greater challenge, but greater opportunity.
Yeah. I recently read an article that talked about how homeschooling really is a step into entrepreneurship. You gain the understanding of, like you said, you have some independence. You are allowed to move with your passion versus, whatever you're told to study. And I think maybe that's where you came from, of being half asleep, walking through life, is that's
exactly.
When we're just told what to do all the time, we're content with that until we get to a point where we realize that you have control and how much more exciting that is, to have that control.
There's no one to blame but yourself. So if your results aren't what you want them to be, then you look inside yourself and figure out why they're not, but if you're just letting someone else drive your life, then you're just constantly in victim mode and, there's nothing I can do about it, when there is in fact quite a lot you can do about it, and you can just have so much more say over your life and the things that you can impact and those sorts of things.
Yeah, complaining doesn't help when you're the one that's pushing the whole idea behind it. So
yeah, exactly. And you can get as mad at yourself as you want, and you do, because you realize, oh boy, that really wasn't the best way to handle such and such. But it's also a very, very unique and profound learning opportunity, because you say, okay, well, next time I'm going to deal with that this way, and this is, handling it this way would have been much better. And I guess that's kind of our educational philosophy with our kids, is just, letting them explore and learn those things in that way, so that they're kind of directing their own course and getting themselves where they want to be and where they feel they need to be, rather than kind of what we want them to do and act, sort of a thing.
Well, and self-directed education is built on failure a little bit, correct? I mean, like in the public school system, or the way that I at least gained my education, is you studied it, you took a test, and then whatever you got on that score is whatever kind of student you are. You're an A student or a B student or whatever, but failure was not appreciated. It wasn't a idea of learning, that we were able to take what we didn't understand and maybe expound upon that. Or maybe if we didn't have an interest for it and didn't feel like studying for it, that we didn't necessarily have to, you know what I mean?
Right.
But like with self-directed education, and I'm sure with farming, with all of those different things that we talked about, entrepreneurship, failure is part of the learning process, correct?
Right, absolutely. You never throw your kid out there and say, oh, failed. But while they're at home, that's the safest place to make mistakes. It's the safest place to, quote unquote, fail. I mean, I really think we look at failure incorrectly. And I do believe that most of that is because of the public school system, because there's a right and a wrong and all of that. And yes, there are a lot of absolutes in our society, and universal laws and God-given laws and all those things. Those are absolutes. But there's also a lot of other things where there's gray areas, and there's a lot of questions where there is no right or wrong. Like, it's based on experience, and it's based on thought, and it's based on, different personalities. And that's one failing of our public school system, I think, is that they want everybody or they need everybody in order to be successful. They need everybody to fit this mold. And when they don't, then they're deemed, a failure or unsuccessful or dumb or whatever the case may be, which is never true. They just don't do things according to the public school system way, the way that works well to educate a large amount of people. And honestly, I was that kid a little bit. I was really an outgoing, kind of precocious little kid, and I drove many of my teachers nuts, honestly. I mean, up until high school. And my first couple years of elementary school were kind of rough on me because I wasn't fitting the mold. I wasn't, I was rubbing up against a lot of things. And so, but slowly I kind of learned to morph and to change that so that it would be more socially acceptable, or whatever you want to say. But honestly, I feel like I kind of lost some of myself in doing so. I don't know, it sounds a little bit over dramatic, but
no.
My spirit kind of got broken just so that I could fit the mold and please my teachers, And I think that's just a big setback right now that a lot of kids are going through, is if they are a little bit different than that prescribed notion, then they're labeled with this, that, or the other, and it's very damaging to them. It has lasting effects into adulthood, I would say.
Yeah, and sometimes far beyond that even. So
oh yes,
sometimes we find ourselves doing something and we don't really know why until we start questioning that, and it goes way back from when we were tiny, what we were taught. So
right. Kind of the blessing of my health struggles and everything is because, I was taught, well, this is the certain way to do things. This is what you do. But I wasn't getting any relief. I wasn't getting any help. And so all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, that's not working for me. So I'm going to have to do something different. And then something different has led me to everything, because all of a sudden I see there's this whole world out there that I didn't see before because I was so coloring in the lines, so to speak, And then once you self-color outside the lines, then you realize there's so much more out there for you to experience.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because sometimes when I'm talking to people that are stuck in that certain mindset of everything traditional, of the way that it should be, underneath I'm thinking there's a whole nother society living outside of what you think. They think that everyone's living like this, but the rest of the world, it's like in this underground community of people that have greater thoughts that extend beyond what they're saying. You know what I mean? A little bit deeper knowledge type of thing. Before we go on, let's listen to this message. Recently, the Luminous Mind became an affiliate for EduSense, which offers tremendous discounts on educational supplies. I personally use EduSense to purchase our family supplies because of their great prices, responsive shipping times, and best of all, the chance to earn EduBucks, which I use towards future purchases. Who doesn't love a great deal within a deal? To get a 90% savings on your EduSense materials, go to theluminousmind.net and click on the sponsor page to find the affiliate link. Start using EduSense to illuminate your educational experience.
3, 2, 1, execute.
Welcome back to The Luminous Mind with Stacey Taggart from Heritage Family Gardens, teaching us about freedom and self-directed education. Tell me how your heritage farm is going to be part of your educational style, and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, partly because of the area which we moved not too long after starting our diet, we didn't have, it's a smaller community, didn't have access to good produce, good veggies, and so we'd always had our own garden and wanted to do something with agriculture, wanted to have our own business, and kind of said, well, there's no place we can buy organic vegetables. We call it beyond organic because even under organic standards, you still can allow some pesticides in there, which we believe are still very damaging to the body and toxic. So, we don't use any chemicals, any pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, any of those things. It's all just natural, the way great-grandpa and great-grandma used to do it. And so we decided, hey, we could make a go of this, and then after that it was like, well, wait a minute, this really goes well with homeschooling. And so our oldest child, he's got a very entrepreneurial spirit anyway, and so we've really been able to see him bloom since doing this. This is only our second season, so we're just barely getting started, but he's got all these ideas, and what if we tried this, and what if we did that, and we're really excited as the kids get older to be able to look at those ideas and to work with the kids and say, well, okay, that if we did this idea, then it's going to cost this, or it's going to have this effect, and just really a hands-on learning, real-life experience for what the real world is about. I graduated high school and went to college, and honestly, I fell flat on my face. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't know how to manage money. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I kept choosing majors based on what other people were doing. No, that sounds kind of cool. Maybe I'll try that. It was a big flop. And so we've just felt really strongly to give our children as much as possible, let them explore and experiment and try things while still at home, while still having that safety net there. And my parents were wonderful. They helped bail me out several times. But while still at home, learning those crucial skills would just be really good for them, and not only their education, but their life. The confidence that comes from that, we feel is really important.
Well, I want to hear about, like, with your fibromyalgia, did you ever find success in, the methods that you were using? I mean, with the garden and with all of that. I mean, tell us some of the success that you've seen.
Oh, I am like a complete night and day different person. I used to be so ill, I would have 2 to 4 days a week where I just couldn't do anything. I was so tired, I hurt, everything ached, and so I would just have to lay down on the couch and not do much. But then that doesn't feel good. You're a mother, you've got children to take care of, a house to clean, all of these things. And so then it is really depressing. It's extremely depressing, and you get really anxious when stuff's coming up because you barely have enough energy to take care of your daily load. And when holidays or company coming or anything, you want to be excited, you want to have fun with it, but it's just so draining physically and emotionally. And so it was terribly difficult. We had some rough years in there. My poor husband was doing his job and mine both. He'd come home and straighten up the house and sometimes cook dinner and try to help me boost my spirits because I felt so incapable, so unable to do anything. And so changing my diet was kind of the first thing. I felt so empowered, like I can do something. And I noticed an effect right away. So our diet looks really different today. We eat very little processed foods. We don't eat anything out of a can. We buy natural and local as much as possible. Just really feel like kind of the traditional food system, food supply has just really changed so much in recent years that it's so damaging to our health, both physically and emotionally.
Yeah, well, and I've talked about on our show at least a couple times that the food supply is just, there's not much nutrition in it. It's very depleting in that way. And so then after you changed your food around, you talked about some energy work and different empowerment type things too.
It's kind of come off in layers. The food and the diet was the first step, and it gave me enough strength and energy and well-being to kind of move on to the next thing. And then the next thing helped me enough to kind of propel me forward to the next thing. And so it's just really been a wonderful learning experience. We do TJ Ed. We really feel strongly about that. That methodology just really rings true to us. And the first thing they talk about is that the moms need to get their education. And I hope to go back and get a formal education at some point. But when I first found TJ Ed, thankfully I was led to homeschooling early. I think God knew I had a lot of work to do before I'd be really ready to teach my kids. And so my oldest son was 3. And so for 2 years, I just read everything I could possibly get my hands on about homeschooling, and especially towards the methodologies that we feel drawn to. Because when I first started feeling kind of this inclination, like maybe we should homeschool, I'd never crossed my mind to do such a thing before. And then when it came, it was kind of what? But, my husband and my parents are kind of going, what in the world are you talking about? Like, you feel better sometimes, but it's still kind of rough here and there. But I've been working on myself all these years since then, and I've been learning new things and reading new books, and one book leads to another and another and another. And so And it's all been part of my education. And so, yeah, it's just a path. It's a stepping stone, Each step propels you to the next.
That's great. Did you have other experiences with the other farm, with that?
Well, I guess I've had some experiences with my children and not pushing them, not forcing them to learn, and just kind of those experiences we've had with that.
That does sound exciting. I want to hear about. Do you have actual stories?
Do you want me to go into it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so our second son was born with a genetic disease, and so he had benign tumors in his brain, and he started having infantile spasms, a form of seizure, when he was 7 months old. And so he was sitting up at the time. He had developed to that point, but then he lost the ability to sit up, and he's had to progress from there and learn and develop everything from sitting up on. And he lost several months of development there, just trying to get the seizures under control and the medication and all of that, which when a child is under age 1, there's so much development that's going on in each of those months that him losing that time was really crucial. So he's still developmentally delayed, but he's making tracks and making progress. And a couple years ago, we had him in a special needs preschool so that he could get his speech therapy and occupational therapy and all of those things. And they kept saying, he doesn't know his colors, he doesn't know his shapes, you got to work with him at home, And so I was trying to help him, but every single time I went to him and and tried to make it fun, tried all these different things to encourage him to learn his colors and shapes, he would just get so mad and so angry, and then I would get frustrated, and it was just a not good situation. But finally, after a lot of prayer and trying to figure out what's going on with him, I was trying to help him one day, and I just saw this look in his eye, and that look just, he felt dumb. He felt completely stupid that he didn't know his colors and his shapes, and that he couldn't understand it. So every time I'm trying to work with him, he just was not making those connections, and that made him feel dumb. And so I decided right then and there, okay, I'm done. If he's an adult and he doesn't know what his colors are, we'll figure something out. We'll figure out some way for him to survive adulthood. But I could not have my child just sitting there with that look on his face of, oh, I'm stupid, I don't get this. And that was just heart-wrenching to me. I was upset. I didn't know if that meant he could never learn. I didn't know if that part of his brain had been damaged somehow and he wouldn't be able to learn. This is a tender mercy to me. Personally, I think as a mom, he was really into Thomas the Tank Engine at the time, and he knew every single one of those engines. And I don't know if he knew the difference by their faces or if he knew the colors but couldn't recognize the colors by name. I don't know exactly how he knew the difference in all of those guys, but he did. And that told me he does have the ability to learn. We need to go slow and we need to go at his pace. And so we dropped it. He didn't end up returning to that preschool the next year, and I felt impressed to not send him, where previously I had felt impressed to send him. And I think that's kind of why they were getting more into the academics, and he was not ready yet. He just developmentally and emotionally and all of that, he was just not ready. And so, like I said, we just dropped it. Just kind of let him learn, kind of let him play. We would read together a lot. He would listen as I was kind of doing more things with his older brother, but that was it. But then it's been less than a year ago, 6 to 8 months, he started asking questions like, oh, well, what color is this and what color is that? And then it got into letters and numbers and, oh, what's this letter? What's that number? And we didn't really think too much of it. We're just answering his questions. And then all of a sudden we realized, this kid knows his entire alphabet. He knows all the numbers. He knows all the colors. He still kind of struggles with shapes, but he hasn't found out that they're important yet. Once he does, I feel like he'll go there and learn those. So then it was kind of funny because we'll be driving around town or doing this or that, and look, Mom, there's a T. Look, Mom, there's a 3. And just so excited. I mean, just exhilarated that he knew those letters. And he'd be, don't you just love T's, Mom? Don't you just love L's? And, kind of chuckle, yeah, I do love them. And then I realized, he's asking me that because he loves them. I wasn't pushing those letters and those numbers down his throat, and he was able to, at his own pace, at his own timing, learn those things. And he does love those letters. And so now, we're driving around, get to a stop sign, S-T-O-P. Mom, what does that spell? And, he's just really, really progressed, and it's all his own timing. And the best part is that he hasn't felt dumb. He's starting to feel smart now, which is huge development for him because, kids know when they're behind other kids, they know. And so, but now that he's starting to gain those skills for himself and on his own, with our assistance, of course, but on his own, of his own volition, his confidence is increasing, and that's just been really inspiring to witness and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know a lot about energy healing work, but I just know that when the feelings are positive and you can get that energy moving in a positive direction, then that's when the healing takes place. And I think that's a lot with our learning too, is that when we have some positive feelings around, learning new things, and like you said, being able to direct it myself and being able to not feel stupid just because, I'm not keeping up with this person, but I'm enthralled with something else. You know what I mean? I think that
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, that energy that is existing is so powerful in propelling that learning forward. So I appreciate you sharing that story. I think, that definitely has a lot to do with our education.
And I think, just quickly, I think that's what happened to me. Is that, I was kind of forced into this box and this prescribed way to learn, and it took the joy right out of it. Suddenly reading wasn't fun because I had to, and wasn't necessarily interested in reading the books I was supposed to, and didn't have time because I'm supposed to be reading those books, didn't have time to read the books I wanted to. And so learning, is just a killjoy. There's nothing fun about it anymore. But then once I got so far away from that, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my goodness, I do love to read. I do love to learn. I do love filling my mind with these things. And so that's just really had a profound effect on me. And I'm excited to pass that on to my kids.
Yeah. Well, and it obviously had a profound enough effect on you to help with your own healing, correct? I mean, the own positive energy that we were talking about before of how that's helped you work with your fibromyalgia.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Awesome. Well, tell us, besides studying, are there other personal habits that you feel have been really helpful to your success?
I think my personal study times have been really important. When I was first getting on this journey, I had young children with nap times, and so I would just take advantage of that. I was reading books, I was on the internet, I was just doing as much study and research as I could, just gain as much knowledge and information as I could. And I guess I kind of have this drive and desire ever since having that experience with my scriptures and all of that I just always have to be learning something new. And so sometimes I'll get grumpy, and my husband will say, oh, just, go get a new book or go read something. And, pretty soon just kind of having that something new just really, really drives me. And so having that study time where I can feed that hunger within me, so to speak. So, and reading books, I think just those habits of always having your hand in something new to learn, some information to feed you and propel you forward, I just think are really important. And now, my kids aren't napping anymore, obviously. And so now I'm sacrificing sleep time. I'm waking up really early in the morning between 4:30 and 5 so that I can get that time in for myself, that time to study, that time to pray, so that I can keep being propelled forward like I was. I don't know. I've always been a morning person anyway, but I would say early mornings are the best.
Yeah. We've talked about the miracle morning before of how, you really do get more done when you get up early because you're finally like all your ducks are in a row, and you've done all the essentials to really helping, like you said, propel that motion forward. So I think it's awesome too, like that learning can do that to us too, that excitement that we feel like just stimulating our brain can cause the rest of our, physical ailments to also feel better. So that's
absolutely. I firmly believe in that. And, and once I've been uncovering my purpose and my passion and all of that, a lot of symptoms there alone just fell away because suddenly, I've got more reason to wake up in the morning. I've got more things to pour my heart into. And so just learning and growing, I think, can help incredibly.
And that's what we're here to do, ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
to really change our life and to hopefully become more than we were when we came in the first place. So
yeah, exactly.
So tell me, what books have you read that you feel like have been really influential? When we talked about scriptures and things like that, but are there any other books that you like to add to that?
Well, none specific. I read a lot of different stuff. I wrote down all the TJ Ed books. I really enjoy those. But honestly, TJ Ed is where I found the classics. And so it's hard for me to choose a favorite classic because they're all so influential to me. And so when I read books, I want to read something that's going to change me. I want to be different at the end of the book than I was at the beginning. If I'm a different person at the end of the book, then it's influenced me. And so
that's when you purchase, right? You need to buy.
Right, yeah, exactly. You check it out from the library first, and then because you want to read it over and over and over again. I'm reading Understood Betsy. I'm not sure, it was a little known classic to me, but I'm reading that right now for the first time, and I'm really enjoying it. And I just love how, whatever you're dealing with in life, and this happens with the scriptures, of course, but it happens with a lot of books, a lot of, good books, worthwhile books. Whatever you're dealing with in your life comes out through those pages, and the answers to your problems, even though they're completely unrelated to whatever's going on in the book, you can find solutions and answers. And I just love that about books. I just love books.
That's great. So tell me, if you could leave a legacy, what would it be? And how is that working into your goals of what you're setting for yourself?
Well, I love this question, honestly, because it's not something I'd put some thought into before. And so now I'm thinking about it, and that'll be really neat in the coming months as I kind of ponder that. But the first legacy I want to leave is with my family. I'm hoping that by breaking the mold and going against the grain, which isn't necessarily the most easy thing at times, but I'm hoping that it's all going to be worth it. I know that it will be in the end, but I am hoping that it will start a new tradition with my family of learning and education and how they apply themselves and how they work through challenges and difficulties. Because if that's the case, I firmly believe that everybody will thrive and be able to fulfill their missions, which nothing can bring more joy to a mother than seeing children and grandchildren who are just awesome, amazing people, helping other people, lifting other people, and just, being the good in the world. Literally, there's the ripple effect and those sorts of things. So I guess, I hope my legacy has sort of one of those ripple effects for betterment and goodness and spreading truth.
That is awesome. Thank you. So before we say goodbye, do you have any final parting words of advice that you'd like to share with our audience? And then please give us your contact information, how we can get in touch with you.
Well, I think, as far as homeschooling goes, it requires you to be a great parent. And I've really had to look at myself as a parent, and I've really had to change a lot of things that were falling way short. And I feel like, being a great parent comes from prayer. I feel like, none of these kids come down here with an owner's manual or an instruction manual.
That's for sure.
And that really frustrated me at first because I just tell me how to do it. And I realized that how I find those answers is by praying. And, Heavenly Father is very interested in these children. He's very interested in what they need. And so when we go to him in prayer, he can give us those answers. And my other piece of advice would just be to have curiosity, have insatiable curiosity. Just ask a lot of questions, both to God and to the library and wherever, Google. Just ask a lot of questions. That's just really driven my life forward and propelled me. And we never thought we would have a garden business and sell vegetables and homeschool, but one thing has led to another. And it's definitely the right path for us. And it all started with some questions. It started with a problem that we didn't know how to solve. And so just ask questions. My advice.
Well, and I feel bad. We really haven't talked a lot about her website. It is actually, there's a blog portion on there. You can get a hold of them and buy vegetables from them and stuff. Do you want to just give us a quick plug on what your website is, what they can find on it, and then give us that kind of contact information?
Sure. Well, it's mostly directed toward local people. We're all about local, so that things don't have to be grown and produced in such a way that they can travel, a lot of miles. But if you're in the area, we love it. We have a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and you sign up at the beginning of the season and you get a basket of produce, and we've got a couple other farmers involved so that we can offer more farm products and natural products. So yeah, but there's also more about us and kind of our journey and why we're doing what we're doing on the website. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Well, and if they're not in your area, there are a lot of local farmers doing this, correct? I mean,
oh, absolutely. And I would absolutely recommend that there's csautah.org is a way to find kind of the similar service in your area. But, we put on our promotional materials, the vegetables that are produced commercially in the United States these days is 40% less nutritious than it was just even 50 years ago. The soils are so depleted and the chemicals and all sorts of things. So even when you think you're eating healthily by getting a bunch of vegetables at the grocery store, there really isn't that much nutrition there. And so I would just recommend anybody go find a farmer and get as much as you can from him or her as possible for your own health and nutrition.
And the website is
www.heritagefamilygardens.com. We're also on Facebook with that same name, Heritage Family Gardens. Or you can email me at Stacey, Stacey, at heritagefamilygardens.com.
That's awesome. And I'm going to reiterate their website of heritagefamilygardens.com. However, we're going to be sure to link all that information that we discussed today on our website as well. But thank you so much, Stacey, for joining us and for helping us light our minds on fire.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this. I really, really enjoy your podcast.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Stacey Taggart, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list and get our new monthly newsletter. Then check out the Services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of illuminating content, go to the Sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content, tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.